Weiner Takes All is the best Squidward episode in a while, and to show this, I'm gonna compare it to its sister episode, which has every single problem that this episode avoids, so by the end of this video, you'll see the best and worst of modern Squidward-centric episodes. So let's start off with the great Squidward episode. Squidward is constantly overwhelmed with his job at the Krusty Krab, and Mr. Krabs offers no sympathy or help, insisting that he's the boss and doesn't have to do quote-unquote grunt work, like take out the trash or be a cashier. However, Squidward is going to change all of this, and it comes from a location some of you probably haven't heard from in years.
Are you tired of being a loser?
Yes.
Weenie Hut Juniors is now hiring managers.
Now, I do want to be fair to this episode because I'm going to be kicking in the back of its sister episode in a second. The premise of Squidward quitting the Krusty Krab isn't a new premise. You have Can You Spare a Dime, an episode I spoke about in my Nice Characters video. You have Squidward working in a chum bucket and chum fricassee, and technically in Krusty Tower, Squidward quit to become a customer because of the hotel's motto. But with the amount of episodes SpongeBob has, I don't need each episode to be unique because that's practically impossible. What I enjoy about this episode is that they don't use Squidward in the one way they practically ran into the ground and actively tried something different, even if it isn't wholly unique, like that other episode. Squidward gives his job away, and SpongeBob, completely heartbroken, goes to find where he went.
Oh, I'm so glad I found you! Now let's get you back to the Krusty Krab.
Oh, I don't think so. I'm the manager here. Which also means I decide who stays and who goes.
Squidward takes great pleasure in kicking out SpongeBob, and no, this episode isn't gonna devolve into SpongeBob and others ruining his new job, thus forcing him to be dragged back to the Krusty Krab. But even in me saying it that way, you can 100% imagine what that episode would be like, and that's my point. This isn't that. In addition to building out the lore from a classic location within SpongeBob, what I enjoy about this episode is that we get to see Squidward take control rather than being the victim. There's plenty of episodes I enjoy where Squidward is the butt of the joke, but there's plenty of episodes I don't enjoy where Squidward is the butt of the joke as well. And given that we have episodes where Squidward isn't the butt of the joke at all that are just as good, I've always just been so confused on why they don't explore that avenue more. So before we get into Squidward running Weenie Hut Jr., let's talk about that other episode that's going to do everything the exact opposite way. Let's get this over with. Squidward scared of SpongeBob's presence? Check. SpongeBob insisting on spending time with Squidward despite clear communication that he's not interested? Check. Squidward having something that he wants to do that he's not going to be able to do?
I have to return my favorite book of daily affirmations to the library by noon, or I'll have to pay a penalty.
You mean this book?
Check. SpongeBob still finding a way to spend time with Squidward anyway? Check. I've been doing this for so long that does anyone out there really have to be told why this type of episode is run into the ground? Good Neighbors, Boating Buddies, Giant Squidward, Squid's Visit, Professor Squidward, Tentacle Vision, Keep Bikini Bottom Beautiful, Smooth Jazz at the Bikini Bottom, Squid Baby, Ink Lemonade, Squidward Sick Days. This concept where the entire premise is Squidward wants to do a thing and we're gonna show 20 reasons why SpongeBob and Patrick won't let him is such an overdone and quite annoying concept. Compared to the other episode, which has a reason for Squidward to quit and try things on his own, this episode doesn't have a reason why SpongeBob has to do this. They even tease where this episode is gonna go.
Hey, Squidward! Going up! I'll take the next one.
I don't want to waste any more time on this than I need to, so SpongeBob wants to spend time with Squidward as he's hanging out with Patrick, and lo and behold, their plans were to get into an elevator, which just so happens to be the elevator that Squidward is in.
Patrick, be a dear and hit the top floor button for me. Top floor? Going up! Right after we hit all these other floors.
What are you doing? You missed one. Boop.
There are plenty of episodes concepts that I love, even from newer SpongeBob episodes that I would love to get more of. I'm not even asking for new episodes to be wholly unique. I love the Salty Sponge because we get to see Tough Mrs. Puff. I want more Tough Mrs. Puff. I love Sandy's Country Christmas because we get to see the Cheeks family. Give me more of that. I love Buff for Puff, even if it makes Mr. Krabs look nuts, because I enjoy Mr. Krabs and Mrs. Puff's new dynamic. I love more more of that. I just don't think that you can make a good faith argument that we haven't had enough episodes where the entire premise is that SpongeBob and Patrick ruined Squidward's day for 11 minutes. What's more disappointing is that there's nuggets of interesting aspects in this episode that could have been explored, such as how there's this other character who's also stuck in an elevator and has been for such a long time. While we're gonna get into what he does later in the episode, I do want to say even with such a tired concept, there's things that could have been great here. But just like look at these two episodes side by side and how they use Squidward. One actually has a story that it's going to be telling, and this other one is just rehashing a decade-old concept. So getting back to the actually good episode, what happens when Squidward starts running Weenie Hut Juniors? Squidward relishes in the fact that now as the manager, he sits on his butt and does nothing. He doesn't even really care about Weenie Hut Juniors like that, and I think that's a good thing because the advertisement wasn't built on finding passionate people, it was built on finding people who don't want to work and are comfortable with and around robots, because that's going to be important soon. Unfortunately for Squidward, the robotic staff that he has now have a joke up their metal sleeve.
Boss Weenie, you must take out the trash.
Still better than the Krusty Krab.
I think one of the big misconceptions around the animation community, maybe about me as well, is that we don't like to see Squidward on the bad end of the stick. And for me, I'll speak for myself, that can't be further from the truth. You're talking to a guy who enjoys episodes such as Shanghai, Accidents Will Happen, Jellyfishing, Wishing Well, just to name a few episodes where Squidward gets into situations that are just as bad as some of the episodes I don't like. Not only this, but one of my favorite Nickelodeon shows is Robot and Monster, and Squidward has nothing on Robot in terms of the level of torment he goes through on an episodic basis.
Oh, but this one swivels.
No, it doesn't.
Sure it does. See?
But what I enjoy here is that Squidward is going through the struggle that he specifically asked for, and things are about to ramp up even more. Squidward justifiably crashes out, having to climb on top of the building he's supposed to be managing, slither his way back in, and let's be honest here, knocks out the robots unconscious implicitly before reading on how to fix the situation. And I love this detail in the manager's room. When he's reading about how to fix the situation, you notice that on the Employee of the Month wall, it's very inconsistent until the robots come into play, and then it's just robots. Oh, look at that! Nuance and foreshadowing in a SpongeBob episode? It's almost as if they can do this a lot more than people claim.
Weenie Butts, bring me a weenie. Oh, I did it! They're perfect employees now. Weenie Butts, run the store.
While I do cheer on Squidward getting a break from the Krusty Krab, it is important to note that with Squidward not caring about the Weenie Hut brand, treating his now obedient Weenie Bots like peasants, and sitting around doing nothing, he doesn't show that much humility at all, which is pretty much begging for him to be humbled. I thought this episode was going to show how being a manager actually in many cases require for you to work even harder than the people that you employ, but they went a completely different direction, and it involves the introduction of someone so important that Squidward freaks out, but we'll get to that once we finish up stuck in an elevator. So, the bulk of this episode is just all of the different ways that Squidward wants to escape that doesn't work for him. He tries to brute force open the door and ends up hanging for his life, and I won't lie to you, I did consider the aspect of him falling being better than being stuck in there. He climbs up the elevator shaft, but it goes back into the elevator, which admittedly is a funny gag if not for the messed up situation that he's in. Oh, but here's a favorite.
I'm starving. How long have we been stuck in here?
Don't worry, Squidward. While you were out, I ordered a pizza.
Pizza delivery.
Thanks.
The best part isn't that now that the door is open, they could leave and Squidward isn't able to. The best part isn't even that despite ordering a pizza and knowing that other people are starving, Patrick eats the whole pizza by himself. The best part is that SpongeBob saw all of that and said nothing. I mean, that's your best friend, dude. Surely you have something to say about that. As much as I enjoy one Squidward-centric episode, how can I not like the other one? Well, let me ask you, how come if we spoke about Club SpongeBob, an episode just like this one that revolves around SpongeBob, Patrick, and Squidward essentially being stuck in one place that we'd have so much to speak about. It has the magic conch shell, among many other great jokes, a great dynamic between the trio, and you'd be hard-pressed to find anyone who's annoyed by Patrick. Then you have this episode, where I bet it won't be spoken about as fondly with new viewers, not even talking about the people who are nostalgia blind, and simply will be put in a pile of mid. The episode devolves into all of them losing their minds, with Squidward becoming a ringleader of sorts, reading his affirmations and manipulating SpongeBob and Patrick into being his servants. And it's such a shame because the other stranded guy comes back and realizes how crazy they are. And it makes me feel like this stuck concept could have been done a lot better. And look, it took me 5 seconds, 5 whole seconds to come up with these two options, but like option A, what if instead Bubble Bass was going to expose some dirty secret about Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy that he got from maybe their show or comic, and as he's going up the elevator, SpongeBob and Patrick have to stop him by stalling the entire time. Or option B, again, 5 seconds here, SpongeBob had a surprise party planned for Patrick or Gary at the top floor, and in every way the elevator couldn't work, and the twist was that the journey to the top floor was more fun than the surprise party could have been. But look, those ideas took me 5 seconds, maybe 10 seconds at most. So to end this episode and get back to the far better episode, as Squidward said earlier, he's only here to turn a book into the library. Does he get to do that? Kind of.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for rescuing me from these stupid...
Are you Squidward Tentacles?
Yes?
You have a withdrawn book that is now 30 seconds overdue. You're going to library jail.
And to top it off, he's locked away with the two people who caused him to be locked up in the first place. What slop? So who was the person that Squidward was freaking out about?
The president of the Weenie Hut Corporation is arriving.
Why didn't you say so?
Weenie J. Weiner. The J stands for Junior.
To what do I owe this honor?
Your success has been all the buzz down at headquarters. So I came straight away to offer you the big promotion.
Despite working for one day, Squidward apparently has done so well that he gets large bags of money to pose with, and an opportunity to climb up the corporate ladder from Weenie J. Weiner. What a name. By the way, Mr. Weiner's design is so eccentric, I love it. Getting back to his appearance though, this should throw up alarm bells in any sane person's head. But Squidward, who has been running on the assumption that managerial work is all about doing nothing and letting everyone else do the work for you, is more than happy to pursue this higher role. Squidward would be transferred to Weenie Hut Seniors, which I always have to give my flowers to the art team of SpongeBob. They continue to do great things anytime I check out the newest episode. We go from subtle hints to big hints that something is up, because as Squidward explores Weenie Hut Seniors, every being that works there is a robot, to which Mr. Weiner simply waves it off by saying it's more efficient to work with robots than the aquatic kind. I feel like this episode is giving some real-world implications that may be speaking to something very current at the moment, but maybe that's just me. As Squidward sits on this cold metal chair, he gets Weenie J. Weiner's true intent.
We are going to turn you into the most efficient manager you can be by turning you into a robot.
The biggest twist that all of us could see, Weenie Hut Juniors is a front for a crazy robot uprising, which if you remember No Weenies Allowed, the only employee there was a robot. Squidward would immediately regret his decision and we get to see Weenie J. Weiner's final form. It looks awesome. Honestly, this looks like a boss that you would see in a game if SpongeBob ever got a new solo game. Squidward now has to run for his life, regretting his decisions to quit the Krusty Krab and be a manager for Weenie Hut Juniors. The difference between this episode and that other episode is that Squidward reached this decision away from SpongeBob. It wasn't that SpongeBob beat him into submission, but that between being turned into a robot slave or being pestered by the Bikini Bottomites for some hours per day at the Krusty Krab, he'd rather the latter. They aren't the most glamorous options, but hey, at least Squidward found this out on his own. Speaking of the Krusty Krab, his former boss and co-worker come to save the day.
That broad's gonna burst!
Could you imagine if that was the last episode ever and this was the last scene we saw? Even I would start crying, cause that's crazy. Fortunately, every character that was on the side of good was okay, except for Squidward. Yes, he did survive the explosion, but with one chaotic pat on the back, Squidward goes through the machine anyway and is turned into a robot. It is nice to see that season 15 is still cranking out very good episodes, but these recent seasons of SpongeBob are no stranger to cranking out bad episodes, even ones more dull than Stuck in the Elevator, that you can check out in this video here, speaking about Squidiot Box.